Kia ora, and great to be back. So this is me sort of dragged out of my Zoom cupboard for the first time in months, so great to be here. So yeah, I'm going to talk about just emerging tech trends, particularly for marketing, but and beyond as well. So, and just for later on, just take a look at that image there. That's a photo of a quaint flower shop storefront with a pastel green and clean white facade, an open door and big window. So we'll come back to that later. Just a little bit about me. So, and as I say, it's my first in-person speaking gig in a long time. And I work as an advisor and increasingly as a commentator, just focusing at the intersection of emerging technology and business strategy. And I run a boutique consulting firm called Mimia, and that's focused on tech strategy, governance, and innovation. And probably a lot of you will know me from my twice weekly newsletter these days on Substack. So that's covering the latest tech developments happening around the globe, but with a particular focus on Aotearoa. Okay, so look, today I'm going to whip through and we'll see how we go for time, but I'm going to talk about sort of 4 emerging tech trends that are happening around the world, shaping the future we're going to be living in. And then how your business can also build up an innovation posture, I guess, to anticipate and take advantage of these changes. And if we get time, we'll talk about NFTs, but hopefully we don't. Okay, so change gears. So I'm going to talk about a little bit, just about the data tech here. And I'm not a specialist in, I sort of sit at that strategy level, not on the operational level, but just some of the things that I'm picking up and scanning and trends in terms of where, omnichannel marketing measurement and attribution in particular is heading. So, you work, and, we heard Amanda's talk just now about becoming sort of scalable, repeatable, consistent. And so, the marketing data sits as part of the sales flywheel. And, the key, for every marketing investment, you're basically wanting to get some analytics out the back of that. And in particular, it's this attribution. So how do you actually get an ROI analysis, targeted understanding of, which of your campaigns, which of your marketing investments are actually paying off? It's actually, getting more and more challenging. And the reason for that is, and I really like this quote from Jayesh, is Waramani, is his name, but the focus on hyper targeting that we've had in the last 10, 15 years is the digital equivalent of fast food, right? So instant gratification of a marketing budget, just give me this targeting, give me that targeting, right? And that's just fueled this sort of dysfunctional flywheel, sort of meta flywheel, where we've just over collected data from users. So, surveillance marketing is now the pushback on that. If you look at that spiral of hyper targeting that's happened, the amount of private and personally identifiable information that the big tech giants, the big ad tech companies, and then also these sort of data aggregators that are sitting there sort of in very shady, unregulated spaces, have finally drawn the ire of regulators, and now we've got sort of GDPR, and you're seeing some of the tech giants as well implementing changes. And so, where is this going to leave the ability to do targeted marketing? I think the questions are up in the air right now. Certainly for Meta, once Apple put the iOS 14 changes out, tracking changes out last year, that's had a massive impact on their ad revenue and the effectiveness. I'm imagining that a lot of you use the Meta stack, and their share price, along with most of the tech sector, actually is down significantly in the year. And you'll be aware, I think last time I was here last year, talked about Google's FLoC, federated learning of cohorts, which was to be implemented in Google Chrome. That's gone. The sandbox on that didn't work. And so just beginning of this year, Google launched Topics API, which is a mechanism for tracking ads and personalization introduced into Google in the Chrome browser only. And it's just very broad. I mean, I think they've launched it with about 350 topics, and these can be as broad as sports or music, right? And so that ability to hyper target that was there before, just as I understand it, just is not going to be there again. And so what we're starting to see in response to this is, one of the trends is a data clean room. Has anybody had any experience with working with some of these? Okay, well, this is like an infographic from a company called Measured that's out there on the web doing this stuff. And this is like basically a secure, protected environment where PII, personal identifying information, can be anonymized, processed, and stored, and then made available maybe to your agency, maybe to some of your partners, but in a privacy compliant way. And then, the key thing here is that, the raw PII, that's your customer data, is only, your brands to use. So you can't, as I understand it, in a privacy compliant way, necessarily share some of that private information outside your business. So yeah, this enables you to basically automate, so you anonymize the user level PII data, and do some level of cohort analysis, but in a compliant way. But I think the jury's still out on whether the complexity of doing this is actually going to deliver an ROI. So look, just another piece of work I've been doing, that's related to this, is just looking across and again, in the context of Amanda's talk, there sort of marketing and sales data. How do you unify that into, so you get that flywheel working? And this is just, it's a drawing with boxes and lines, but basically, as a customer, if you think of all of the services within a business, and it's a bit of an eye chart there, but they're coming in through multiple channels, and then you've got a number of systems underneath that. So you've got an e-commerce, so you've got sort of an e-commerce stack, you've got a wholesale stack, physical retail, there's still people doing that, and then underneath all of that, your CRM and your ERP and financials, and then your MarTech stack on the left. And so, how do you've got silos of data sitting in every single one of these systems, right? And getting an integrated single view of the customer, pretty much every New Zealand business I speak to, whether they're tech businesses or not, is still challenged with, understanding, how to join data together consistently across their enterprise from all those systems. And so, conceptually, we'll talk about a data warehouse where we basically just pour raw data into a data lake and then, put dimensions together across the warehouse, and that makes it available for searching throughout the enterprise. And then down the bottom, you've still got your enterprise integration, your operational integration, where you take an order in Shopify and it goes into the CRM and it goes out to the fulfillment. So look, just doing a bit of a scan. There's an evolving data warehouse stack, and so you've got the big cloud platforms, and so sort of AWS, Google, and Microsoft Azure will be the big data warehouse, the big data lake platforms and storage that you can put on there. That's on the top right there is AWS's data lake reference architecture. And then you're seeing sort of Snowflake is sort of relatively platform agnostic, but that's probably the best in class for building data warehouse functionality. And then, but also just more down towards the sort of smaller end. So Supermetrics, anyone using Supermetrics around the room? Yeah, a little bit. So that's a good way of basically using drag and drop feeds from sort of from your Google Analytics stack and so on. You can put that into Data Studio. And then another one that I've come across, especially if you're working with e-commerce businesses on the Shopify stack, then Dacity is just data as a service. It's very interesting, just completely cloud-based solution where you can sort of drag this data together in the standard dimensions. But my sense is it's all still pretty early. So just wrapping up that section there. I think ROI measurement, so getting that attribution flywheel working for personalized advertising, the developments with Flock and Google Topics, I think it's still up in the air, and I think there's still quite a way to go until this balance of privacy compliance. I think there's a privacy panel later on is gonna land, and so as I was saying last year, focus on your first party data where you can, and maybe going back and looking at pay-per-click, and then that data warehouse BI stack, definitely continue to invest in that. And that's not just around marketing as well. Obviously, that's just full all of business operational improvement. So happy to talk about any of that, but go on to sort of more entertaining matters now. So the metaverse. What is it? You've obviously heard of it, and things obviously took off last year when Facebook renamed themselves to Meta, and they're basically spending $10 billion per year building their version of the metaverse. And this is just towards the end of last year. Every company out there is now building as a metaverse strategy. So what actually is it? It's really just a rebrand of virtual reality and augmented reality. And large tech companies, in particular Meta, are betting that this is the next big platform after mobile. And I'll show you some of their advances in a minute, which they may well be right. But today's metaverse is pretty mundane, and so this is Meta's Workrooms product, and this is a vision of what comes after Zoom and Teams, and so we'll all be sitting in a room like this, but without any legs and with no elbow articulation, looking at a screen. It's of all the things you could do in virtual reality, this is what they come out. But actually it's pretty impressive, right? So just wearing a $300 VR headset, you can drive a personal avatar in the virtual world, and you can use expressive hand gestures, and they're working on capturing facial expressions, which we'll see in a second, and full body motion. So there's actually some really impressive tricks they've done as well with just audio, so that people's voices are coming from your right or your left, or a sound's coming from straight in front of you. That's all modeled in, and it is actually pretty impressive if you've just used the Quest there, Quest 2. Look, so here's a glimpse of one possible future. On the right of the picture is Code Miko, and she's a virtual streamer on Twitch. And on the left is the person known only as the technician. And she's basically spends hours every day wearing this full body motion capture suit, and then streaming live content out to her audience. Yep. And so this is a custom setup, and I think this is Code Miko 3, and she's now up to a rig of Code Miko 5. And this is rapidly going to commodify. And so maybe this is how we're going to turn up for work in the metaverse in the future. All right, now I was talking about what Meta's been doing. This came out last week. So they're spending upwards of $3 billion a quarter on their metaverse R&D, and this is what they've come up with.
So this is the Codec Avatar 2.0 demo.
Okay.
As Gabe mentioned, I'm Jason. I'll be your host throughout this demo, and I'll just go through the various features of this demo quickly. Yeah. So what you're seeing actually is a relightable volumetric representation of my head, my face, my hair, my shoulders, and neck. And to enable this interaction, there are a few cameras mounted on the headset that I'm wearing. They're observing my eyes and my mouth and allow me to animate the avatar in various ways. For example, I can move my eyebrows, I can squint, widen my eyes, look around, I can scrunch my nose, make various mouth movements, from the side.
So it's almost there, right? And so when you combine that with the headset technology that's advancing, and so there's a whole ecosystem of virtual reality and augmented reality headsets out there, and you could go and spend over $10,000 on the Vario VR3 there, which basically promises human retina resolution display. And actually, just over a week ago again, Meta just leaked this little sneak peek of their upcoming Cambria headset, which will be out next year. So that's the next generation after the Quest 2. And so if you just shift into the other side of the metaverse, which is not just virtual reality, but augmented reality, something called mixed reality. And this is where basically a virtual experience is overlaid over your real world environment. And the hardware to achieve this has been improving at a rapid scale as well. So there's two ways of doing this. So there's the way that sort of Meta use, and then the Vario at the top there, where you've got cameras on top of your VR headset, and they sort of feed through into your field of vision. And so you're actually just watching everything as an animated virtual reality projection, or you've got the Magic Leap there at the bottom. That's the Magic Leap 2 that's just coming out, and that's basically where they project onto some glasses in front of your eyes. So it's been quite interesting to see which of those tech approaches. There's much more challenges with the Magic Leap approach. This is, and Snap is another player. So Snap have got their Snap glasses out there, and just keep an eye out because they're really investing hard in their augmented reality platform. And then you may have just seen things like this. So in retail, for example, you can try on a pair of shoes in Snapchat, and when you think about all the physical retail real estate that's still deployed. In this case, perhaps this is good enough that it's never going to be needed again. Just the other one, and this is quite interesting. This is just released. I just saw this last week. So Snap have got a City Mapper API, and so in Niantic, who make Pokemon Go, they're also releasing something like this. But this basically scans the street that you're in, recognizes exactly where you are, so it geolocates you from that vision, and then you're then able to overlay your reality with placements, and so you can just walk around. So on the one hand, when we go back to permission-based marketing, I don't know if you've seen that video of where the entire reality is basically overlaid with ads and everything, which we probably wouldn't want. But hopefully this sort of brings a few ideas up to the fore. And look, finally, augmented reality. I mean, it's a whole new medium for artistic expression as well, right? And this is a beautiful example from Niantic. Just hints at artistic experiences in the metaverse. So we could just be walking around Auckland, and there's all this virtual art just appearing. It's pretty cool, eh? All right, now I'm going to blow your mind. So when I was here last year, I gave a quick demo of what's possible with OpenAI's GPT-3 generative text model. And if you were here last year, that was basically where you can just type in an idea for a marketing campaign, and it just writes it for you. Yep. And so all your blog posts, all your titles, all your social media posts, the AI will just create that. And that's, it's fair to say things have moved along quite a way since then. And so, back in January 2021, OpenAI released DALL-E 1. And this was an example at the time. So you sort of ask it to create an avocado in the shape of an armchair in the shape of an avocado, and it basically has mapped all of the text out there on the internet to all of the images out there on the internet. And this is what the computer dreamed up, it's a whole bunch of concepts. So it's pretty amazing, right? DALL-E 2 last month in April, and this just blows my mind, right? So just some examples here: teddy bears mixing sparkling chemicals as mad scientists in a steampunk style. Just imagines that, right? An astronaut riding a horse in a photorealistic style. Yeah. Teddy bears again, working on new AI research on the moon in the 1980s. So the resolution, the precision of DALL-E 2 is just orders of magnitude more than DALL-E 1, which was just at the beginning of 2021. And just a couple of other examples. So basically, I've been down on the wait list for over a month now. I just can't wait to get my hands on it. But a couple of people, have just been posting what they've been experimenting with: a solar punk lion on a container ship. And I really like this one on the right. An IT guy trying to fix hardware of a PC tower is being tangled by the PC cables like Laocoon. Marble copy after Hellenistic original from about 200 BC. Amazing, right? So this takes me back to that image I showed you right at the very beginning, right? And this is actually the most profound piece, because it's great to go and explore those more esoteric areas, of the information space. This is basically all of our written and imagery culture of all time is now inside this model, pretty much. Every Wikipedia page, every photo that anyone's ever uploaded to the internet is basically used to train this trillions of parameters machine learning model. And this is, as I say, a photo of a quaint flower shop storefront with a pastel green and clean white facade, an open door and big window. So basically any marketing campaign that you ever create now, any marketing content, you can just use, there's no need to find stock photos. There's no need to hire a photographer. Basically, in almost every case, you will just be able to imagine this up from DALL-E 2. It's got some pretty profound implications. Venkatesh Rao is a thinker that is just out there, way out there at front. So what happens next when things get recursive and the training set starts to include, and in fact actually get overwhelmed by images that are created by DALL-E 2 itself? And he does a thought experiment here. So DALL-E 2060, give me a lion eating a taco in DALL-E 2030 style, right? So there's will be this sort of recursive, art history process. And then I think this is really important. I was just telling about this earlier. So what if 99% of the internet, or the metaverse as it's going to become, is generated by AI, right? So how, you're going to find these AIs basically competing with each other to game the search engine algorithms, to game the social media algorithms. And as a human marketer, what tools are you going to use to get cut through there? Or will it just become this sort of stochastic white noise to play in? So anyway, lots to look forward to. We've just got time for a little quick run around metaverse, or have I got to finish? Yeah, cool. All right. So you've obviously heard of Web3. I call it decentralized everything. And look, some of the world's greatest minds are actually working on Web3. But there's a whole bunch of hype and confusion as to what it actually means. So it tracks its origins back to the original Bitcoin white paper, and that was published by the pseudonymous Satoshi Nakamoto, who disappeared soon after publishing the paper. And although there were some theories his identity completely remains a mystery today. And this white paper was truly a masterpiece in breakthrough thinking, on a par with, Da Vinci or Einstein. And it sort of weaved previous cryptographic advances and introduced the concept of a blockchain, which is a distributed database, which enabled, in this case, peer-to-peer payments without requiring a bank or any other intermediary to handle the payment. And so, I was going to say that's out of date, that picture. Yeah, crypto's gone down a bit since. Got up to 3 trillion at the end of last year. So these decentralized blockchain protocols have matured and advanced, and so have the number of applications that you can run over them. So at a high level, what we're calling Web3 now is just a decentralized computing infrastructure for the whole world. So in theory, it's out of the control of any one player. This diagram sort of hopefully just describes some of that changes, where it's completely peer-to-peer experience. And so the user interface probably won't change that much, but the infrastructure underneath all of the computing that we're seeing will be distributed, so no one player gets a monopoly. So just take you through a few Web3 developments. So decentralized finance is probably the leading Web3 industry at the moment, DeFi. And these, you've got cryptocurrencies, stable coins, smart contracts, the whole sort of ecosystem that's exploding. Again, tread carefully with some of that stuff, because we keep seeing stories of protocols being sort of robbed of millions of dollars through a hack. Interesting, especially with Elon Musk taking over Twitter. I saw today that Trump's replatformed, it's predictable. But there's talk here. So Twitter invested in Blue Sky, which is now an independent initiative, but with a way to sort of decentralize social media. And it'd be interesting to see how that layer, so you get complete free speech. That was the big Twitter discussion. But then it's actually the algorithms which promote and promote and demote content, that's actually where the layer where you're going to need to get the most effect. So whether or not certain things get amplified or not, and whether you as a consumer can choose which algorithm you use, that's some of that technology needs to be built out. Then this is just BitClout, which was an early product. This is based on a DeFi protocol, and yeah, it's pretty interesting. It's a Twitter clone. Only crypto bros use it, but basically it works completely decentralized across the internet. All right, so NFTs, non-fungible tokens. Who's bought one of these? Someone put a hand up. So this is basically the idea here is where a unique piece of data, so an image, a document, a video, is encrypted, and a certificate of ownership, I guess, is encrypted onto the blockchain, and I say in inverted commas, right? And so it's led to an explosion of collectible NFT art. Beeple on the left sold for 69 million at the beginning of it, and then Bored Ape Yacht Club, and people have paid astounding sums for all of these items. But technically, they're just JPEGs. Yep. And right-click Save As, and that's but you're basically paying for a certificate of ownership on a blockchain somewhere. And so I just think this is the Wild West. And when you think you just change one pixel of that, and it's logically a different image, and so there's nothing to stop anyone copying it. In fact, I just did here. And so I personally, I think it's there's this great quote from a guy called Dan Hahn, Griff Tech, and we may be at the end actually. So this basically the NFT token sold is right down at the bottom now, and crypto's just gone through the floor in the last month. So just some other interesting stuff that's happening in decentralized in Web3. So decentralized autonomous organizations, DAOs. They're new ways for groups around the world to collectively come together, coordinate resources, and achieve a particular outcome. These are two high-profile examples, by the US Constitution or by June, but not the copyright for it. It's very interesting. I think you're going to see political organizations, and then the most fascinating development. Balaji Srinivasan is used to be CTO of Coinbase and is one of the world's greatest tech thinkers, I would say. He's been developing, I think he's got a book out later this year on the concept of network states, and this is where you have a DAO which creates border-spanning, geographic border-spanning political entities. So, I would follow that really carefully. I think there's some really quite amazing innovation that's happening in this Web3 space, but at the same time, the crypto grift on top of it makes it hard to get the signal from the noise. Okay, so this is my favorite quote: "Skate to where the puck's going to be, not where it has been." And this is pretty much how I go about my day all the time. If you are interested in the stuff I've been talking about, then please do sign up to my newsletter. So it's mimia.substack.com, and it comes out on a Wednesday and a Sunday, covering emerging tech and global accelerating change. And there we go, only 15 minutes behind. Cool. Thank you.